We're live.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Self-Publishing Insiders. You guys, strap in because we've got an awesome guest today with an incredible story. You're going to want to hear every word of it. Our guest today is Elicia Hyder. Welcome, Alicia.
Hi, thanks, Jim.
Let me read a little bit of your background here. Elicia Hyder is the best-selling author of Detached, the Soul Summoners series, the Music City Roller series, and The Bed She Made, with nearly 1 million copies. 1 million?
Yeah.
Wow. With nearly 1 million copies sold, she has been a Kindle Unlimited All-Star in the US and the UK, and her novels have been optioned for film and television.
Yeah.
She currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee with her hero material husband, 5 loud teenagers, a sheepadoodle named Draco Malfoy, and Benny, the most stubborn English bulldog on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. This is my first podcast, like, in years.
I can't believe that.
Hello.
All right, let's do this thing. Because I'm always like, oh, I want to hear about your background. I want to hear about this and I want to hear about that. And then my team is hanging out in the comments and they're like, Jim, get to the point. Come on. Because I have so much fun sometimes.
Yeah.
But you have quite a story to share. And I think that it's super inspiring. So I don't want to waste another minute. Well, let's just kind of hop into it if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because you've had some amazing ups and downs. You've had some euphoric highs, and you've had what some people might consider like some crushing lows. But what inspires me about you is you're like, nah, watch this, you guys.
Yeah.
And you kind of take it and run with it. So can we talk about some of this journey that you've been on? When did you start publishing, and was it always self-publishing?
So I started writing when I was a kid, and I kept my stories very private. I wouldn't let anybody see them because I was afraid, what people are going to think. And because I was honestly I was writing high school erotica about all the boys that I loved, like as you do when you're a girl writer at 14 or 15. And I kept it secret. I kept it hidden. I didn't say anything about it to anybody for years.
Did you show your friends?
I had one friend. And I had one cousin who I would let them read chapters here and there. But that was it. That was my first experience co-writing was in the 10th grade with my friend Brooke. And I would write a chapter and she would write a chapter. And incidentally enough, like I was writing chapters about my now husband.
No way.
Yeah, when we were kids, and I would give anything to find some of those old stories, but yeah, they're gone.
Oh man, we should have booked this for like 2 hours or 3 hours.
I know, man, I could talk all day. But yeah, so I had all of these stories that I just kept to myself. They were just for me. Yeah. It was the most healthy form of escapism and self-medicating that there is like when you're fed up with this life, get lost in one that you create for yourself. Absolutely. And it was many, many, many years before I started writing for actually letting other people read them. And I started doing that on MySpace.
I remember.
So showing my age, right? Like I'm
right there with you.
There was a great blogging.
Hey, we're pioneers.
There was a great blogging platform on MySpace, back in the day. And so that was the first time that I ever started developing a following with what I was writing. It was on the heels. My first husband, when he was 25, I was 26. He was the first documented death in the state of Tennessee for texting and driving. And we were on the front page of the Tennessean. It was like such a new thing. This was in 2008. And it was before the laws existed. This is when we still all had flip phones, and you're having to type to get to the letter C. You've got to hit 3, or 2, 3 times. And I had a lot to say after he died, of course, and we had 2 kids at the time. They were 2 and 4. And I just took to MySpace and started venting, honestly, and just talking about how short life is. And like, I never expected to be a widow at 26.
At 26.
You know? And like, here's the beginning of this massive problem that is someday going to rival drunk driving, you know, for safety. And I started just putting my feelings out there and just putting a lot of brutal honesty on the internet, and people really connected with it. So that was my first instance of publishing, because even if you write a blog, that is a type of publishing. It's using your platform for whatever good or evil you want to use it for. And I knew that people really connected, and that was really, really encouraging. And I started blogging regularly on my own website and kind of developing my following that way, just writing about literally whatever I wanted to write about. It was all very nonfiction. And I had decided, after a conversation with my now husband, he was like, he knew, you know, he knows all my secrets. And he's like, when are you going to start actually doing what you want to do and write your book? And so with his,
we all need somebody like that to kind of keep us in check from time to time.
Somebody that believes in us more than we believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, like, you need to surround yourself with people who believe in you, even when you don't believe it for yourself.
Right.
And he and I had a very serious conversation on the back porch about it. I'm like, are you sure that you want me to be a writer? Because I know me. And if I go all in, I'm going all in.
Yeah. Like, my all in is probably different than your all in.
Totally. This isn't going to me. This isn't going to me be blogging, you know, 2 or 3 times a week and posting on certain days. If I go in, I'm going to go all in. I know how I get sucked into these stories. And he was like, this is what you were born to do. So what are you waiting for? And anybody
who has a partner who's got their back and tells you this is what you were born to do. I mean, oh my God.
Totally, you know, and never batted an eye. Like, when I'm spending money on advertising and on book covers and on editing so that I can put forth the most professional product, he believed in me every step of the way, never doubted, never wavered. He said, this is what you were born to do. Yeah. Phenomenal. So, I mean, huge amount of the credit goes to my sweet husband. So back in, we could talk for 2 hours, but I'm going to try to hit the highlight. So I wrote, there's a book back here in my background, The Bed She Made. I wrote that book. That was the first book that I ever typed the end on. And if you've ever written a book, that's a really big deal. You get all the kind of warm fuzzies the first time you type the end on anything. But it was very personal. It was an incredibly fictionalized version of a lot of real life stuff with me. And I never meant to publish it. Like, I was
just going to ask you, did you have the intention of publishing it?
Never, ever, ever, ever did I have the intention of publishing it. It was just me, like, trying to make sense of my journey thus far in this life. And that's the main character's name in that book, is Journey. And I put it up. So I finished that book, and then I finished a book called The Soul Summoner, which is...
Who convinced you to publish that book?
Well, but hold on. I gotta tell this. I gotta tell this one first, because I finished The Bed She Made, and then I stuck it in a drawer, and I never did anything with it.
Okay.
I let a handful of people read it. My husband, my mother-in-law, my family. That was it. Put it in a drawer. Okay. And I wrote The Soul Summoner, which is the book that's getting all of the buzz these days. 10 years later. And I had no idea how to publish a book. That book, The Soul Summoner, was far better than The Bed She Made, because I had no idea how to write a book. You'll notice the more books you publish, the better you get at it. And you go back to your first books and you're so cringy. You're like, oh God.
I feel like we hear that, like, on every episode.
because it's something we all share. We all share that.
But don't let that paralyze you. Anybody who's like just getting into this, don't let that stop you. Like, get it out there.
Get it out. Because, you know, you only need to connect with one person, like, to make a difference. That's it.
Right.
One person.
And the only way to improve your craft is to do.
Exactly. So everybody be brave. Be brave. If I can do this, anybody can do this. And I wrote The Bed She Made wrote The Soul Summoner, and I'm like, okay, this is a good book. I sent it to my brother-in-law, who is just, I mean, he's not going to blow smoke up my fanny. He's going to tell me the truth. And he loved this book. And that was all of the encouragement that I needed to start Googling scary things like how to get a book published, because I didn't know. Yeah. And I read in a Google search that you need to find agents. You can't get a publisher without an agent, and you can't get an agent without a publishing. It's just this crazy, circle. And
remind me about what year this is, just so we can.
Yeah, this was 2015. 2014 when I wrote these books.
Okay.
2015 is when they were published, and I wrote this. I learned online that you should find other agents who have represented similar type work, and so I did my research and I picked my 3 top agents at the time that represented stuff similar genre.
Okay.
And I sent them the query, and I sent them the first 50 pages and stuff, and heard back from my number 1 pick, which let me tell anybody who's listening that's never done that before, that doesn't usually happen. And they didn't end up picking me up, but it was really, I had enough faith to know this book has serious potential. It gave me enough spurred on that, hey, New York is interested in this book. And that agent called me. I wish that I could remember the date. I've got it written down somewhere, but called me to say, hey, we got your book. We really loved this book, The Soul Summoner. Can you send us the full book? Oh, wow. And I was sitting in the exact same chair about 3 hours later when my doctor called. Again, this was 2015. My doctor called and said, we think it's cancer. We need you to come in tomorrow for more testing.
On the same day.
I was literally sitting in the same chair at my friend's house. Yeah. And I made a lot of really emotional phone calls that day. Right? Yeah, a lot of really emotional. And I went in the next day to my doctor. They did all of the tests. Again, long story short, it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 2. And I had to put my whole life on hold at that point to deal with cancer, as you do when you're sick. Yeah. And particularly for my family, my kids, they had already lost one parent.
Yeah.
And so, anytime you get a cancer diagnosis, it's terrifying. But for my kids who were still pretty small, I mean, I was terrified for them. Just like, how do you process the thought of losing parents? Yeah. And we all linked arms together and got even closer than we all are and marched through that season, as best that we could.
Right.
But I had to put The Soul Summoner on hold because I didn't know anything about the publishing industry. And there's no way that I could figure all of that out and deal with lymphoma.
Yeah.
And so I put brakes on the whole Soul Summoner project and dealt with cancer and all the tests and the surgeries and all of that stuff. And when I started chemo, I made the decision to take the Bed She Made book and use it as my belly flop book, is what I like to call it, into publishing. I decided to start self-publishing it to Wattpad because it's a YA kind of new adult YA coming of age story, publishing it chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
And it became
and Wattpad was just starting to really take off around that time.
Yeah. It was in there when they were just starting to explode. And it was the year after, I think, they started the Waddy Awards, and the Bed She Made won best chick lit or new adult novel of that year, and stayed at number 1 for like 18 months or something, and garnered millions of reads. And
I was going to say, that's amazing to get that high, because that that platform is huge.
Yeah, it was millions and millions and millions of reads. If you go and look it up now, there's going to be less reads on it because, back in the day when you would delete chapters, it would take all of your reads with you. And when you publish to Kindle Unlimited, you can't even be on Wattpad. So didn't know that at the time, but it hit the market for that book, even though it was free on Wattpad. It hit the market for those readers. It reached the audience that heroine wanted to talk to. Yeah. And it was just phenomenal because then I had people contacting me, youngsters, with their whole lives ahead of them. Like, Journey has meant so much to me as a person, and that was just the biggest compliment. That'll just
light a fire when your fans start telling you about how it impacted their lives.
Totally. And so that's how I spent chemo the first time is I got it. I did covers. I didn't even do editing on that book. It's never been edited. But I put it out there the best that I could at the time. Yeah. And it started paying the bills around the house. This book that was, honestly, I didn't think that it was any good.
I always thought that book came out first. Like you published that first and then, okay.
Right. And it really started helping me build a following in actual fiction publishing. Mm-hmm. And so when it came time, way later that fall, Soul Summoner was published. I made the decision to self-publish it. I got 3 different offers on it from moderate size houses, not big 5 publishers.
Okay.
But all of them were less money than I had made in the 6 months that The Bed She Made had been out. I'm like, why on earth am I going to let you play in my sandbox? I've made more money than you have on this book that I'm going to publish.
What was their reaction to that? Are they like, oh, not again?
Well, disappointment. But I mean, realistically, like, this is a money-making business. And if they see an opportunity to make money, people want to make money off of you. But I had spent that entire time during chemo learning all that I could about publishing, starting to make friends in publishing, learning everything that I could learn before I signed my rights over to anybody, which is a very important step that a lot of writers skip when they have their first book. Because, man, we all know the publishing industry can be extremely predatory. There are people out there who just want what you've put out because they can't come up with their own content. Mm-hmm. They know how to sell. Yeah.
Right. And those are entities out there who prey on the hopes and dreams of aspiring authors. They'll gladly publish you for $10,000.
Absolutely. And I don't feel that any of the publishers who approached me were predatory. They were reputable, but I knew that with my background, because I have a background in internet marketing, I knew that I didn't need what you have to offer me. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to walk away from those and just decided to put it out myself. And man, I'm so glad that I did, because now 10 years later, walking into meetings about film and TV and, talking about special edition books, and I don't have to ask for anybody else's permission except my own. Because me and my attorneys have covered my own backside. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've looked out for myself in this business, and I've done that by learning publishing from the inside out before making life-changing decisions for my career.
Right. Such excellent advice, but it's so hard to do too, because for anybody who's been spending months or rather years to finish their manuscript or manuscripts, when you first start getting those little, those nibbles of interest, it's intoxicating. Like you just want that validation so bad.
It is.
But you got to do the extra work, like you said, the extra homework.
For sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So you went through chemo.
Yeah.
But then you started just cranking out more books.
I did.
Did you have to? How long did you wait
So
I
before,
mean, based on how many books you have, it seems like you've just been just cranking them and cranking them and cranking them out.
well, this is an important lesson for anybody that's getting started in this. Before I published book 1 of that series, I had already written books 1, books 2, and book 3. And book 3, I ended up changing a whole lot and had major revisions done after that book.
Mm-hmm.
But book 1 and book 2 were ready to go out the door with a marketing plan for all 3 books laid in place before I published book 1. And this was back in the heyday of rapid release.
Yeah.
Rapid release, I don't think is as effectual these days as it is effective for burning authors out really fast.
Right.
But it was back when rapid release was the secret sauce to conquer the Amazon charts. And I had all of that stuff lined up, ready to go before publishing the Soul Summoner book 1. And I didn't know what I was doing then. I had done a lot of work, but like I was testing all of this advice that I had gotten with my actual book baby, you know?
Yep. How are you spacing those releases out? Or how did you plan to space those releases?
I want to say that the first, and I don't recommend this as advice. I want that to be crystal clear. Because what worked 10 years ago doesn't work anymore. So please do not kill yourself trying to do this because results are not guaranteed, especially now. I released book 1 in November. I'm pretty sure that book 2 came out in January, and then book 3 came out sometime maybe that summer. Yeah. So within the first 9 months, I would say, all 3 of those books came out. And when book 3 came out, that was when I had my first $50,000 month.
Wow.
Which is, that's nutty. That's really nutty.
But good nutty.
It is good nutty. It is good nutty, especially because, back then we had a lot of bills, cancer bills. And obviously that was my only full-time job. And my husband's in the military and he was deployed. And I don't know if y'all know this, but they don't pay our soldiers very well. Yeah. Like it was life-changing. It was life-changing for us.
That's part of the story I didn't know, or I missed it, in that like you're going through your life battles. You're writing books, but I didn't realize that your husband was also deployed at the time, and you're taking care of the kids. And
yeah, for sure. So where I say in my bio that my husband is hero material, my husband is a total badass. I mean, can I say that on this podcast?
Please do.
Yeah, my husband is a warrior through and through, and he's retired now. He retired in 2020 from the military.
I've got to meet this dude.
Oh, he's awesome. He's fantastic. So yeah, 22 years military, and now he's law enforcement, full-time law enforcement. Wow. And so I write, my heroes in my books they're always either cops or military. And so I have in-home consultation on all of those subjects with my husband, which is awesome.
That's amazing. All right. I keep going back to I keep thinking about your kids. So I'm like, oh my God, these kids, these examples that they have in this household. It's like, oh man, we cannot like be slackers at all. Because look at mom, look at dad.
My kids, I have to say this, the older they get, the more I am amazed by them.
Yeah.
They are good human beings. And that is the only thing that any parent can ever hope to say about their
kids. Did your job.
They're just good humans.
Yeah.
When I get sad about this world, I think about the next generation that's coming up, and it restores my hope.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you've recently received some news, and it's kind of like, again, going back to your background and your bio, I get the sense that life has a way of repeating with you.
Yeah.
A bit, because let's see, you received some news, some not so good news, and then at the time that you received that not so good news or that bad news, I don't know, I'm trying to sugarcoat that. you received some bad news, but at the time you received that bad news, something else was kind of cooking in the background.
Totally. So
So can you walk
rewind.
us through that?
So rewind back to 2020, when the whole world shut down. We all pivoted in our businesses, and
We all did.
we all figured out how to make it work. My final full-length book in the Soul Summoner series, I actually released it a month early because the world went on lockdown and everybody was at home like freaking out. And I was like, I can at least do this for my readers. Like they've been waiting on this book. Because at that point I was spacing out releases more and more. And I was like, I'm just going to pull the trigger and surprise everybody and let them have this book a month early. And ironically, I had written all of this long before the pandemic started. And that was had happened in this series in the off time, which is odd in the book series. So my heroine and my angels and my demons, they're all fighting a war very similarly to what we were seeing in the actual world.
Oh, wow.
With,
no coincidences.
No coincidences. And, love and hope wins.
Hey.
I was able to put that word out, for my readers, that love and hope wins. And I got through 2020 with my health intact. And then in 2021, I started coming down with COVID. Every time that it would leave my system, I would get sick again. And so far I've had it at least 5 times. I've tested positive 5 times. But it was a huge signal, like something is wrong with your immune system again. Yeah. Like I am sick all the time. I got a tiny piece of glass in my foot. How many times has that happened to all of us, step on a shard? And it put me in the hospital 4 days in a row because of infection. And I'm like, this isn't normal. This isn't normal. Yeah. And so I kept pushing my doctors. Nobody knows your body better than you do.
Absolutely.
So if you think something is wrong, make sure that they find what it is. And so for 3 years, they've been testing and testing and testing and testing and testing. And finally, my doctor said, we need to do a bone marrow biopsy. And I got the phone call. It was a Thursday. I felt in my gut, go get your phone. And I walked into my office and I picked up my phone. And as soon as it was in my hand, it rang and it was my doctor. And she said, well, you were right. Because I had told her a year before, I have Waldenstrom, which is a really rare immune bone marrow cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But my first cousin has it. And when I was looking at the symptoms, I'm like, yep, that fits. And I told her, I was like, can we test for this? She's like, it's very invasive testing. It requires a bone marrow biopsy. That's not an easy thing to have done. It's not. And she's like, and it's so rare. There's no chance that this is what it is. And that was August 6th last year. And she called me July 4th. I guess it was July 3rd, July 4th, it was somewhere during that week, and said, well, you were right. It's Waldenstrom.
That was just past July?
Just like a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. Like I have known that I've been sick for a very long time.
But they finally just said, oh, you're right.
Yeah, they just found it. It took the bone marrow biopsy to confirm it.
Okay.
And so she's like, we're going to have to refer you to a specialist because like she doesn't even treat this cancer. It's so rare. And at the same time, when she called me is when they were having a huge meeting in Hollywood about about the next steps for the Soul Summoner again, because it's been in TV production for the past several years. And so all of that was happening at the same time that she called and said, so, I mean, I write supernatural books and it's really hard for me to come up with any way that it's not supernatural with the way all of these things unfold.
You're saying that. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I feel like all this, your books are just being channeled through you and you're this conduit.
it's almost like that there's a plan that I have nothing to do with. I mean, truly, you know?
I mean, I'm listening, but I'm like, I mean, to our viewers, are you guys all like me right now, just with your mouth open?
If I were to make this stuff up and try to sell it in a fiction book, it would fail because it's so unbelievable. You know, because this just doesn't happen. Like, but it's happened now twice with this same exact book series. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, were you on the floor? Like, how is this all happening?
Yeah. I mean, I really, really was. Like, it was absolutely mind-blowing. But it was immensely comforting because on the 2 worst news days of my life, I got to sit back and go, you know what? Maybe I'm not alone in this. Maybe, just maybe, I can hold out hope that all of this horrible stuff that I have been through is not for nothing. Maybe there's a reason for it. Right. And I believe in magic. I believe in hope. And this particular book series is about the battle of good and evil and hope and love winning. And that's exactly what my life has been up until this point. And I believe that in my bones. I believe that exists in our universe. I believe that wants to play in our daily lives. And if we let it, we can let it. And we're all going to have to go through storms. We're all going to have to go through storms. And boy, is it amazing to be able to walk through them with hope, knowing I'm not alone in this.
Wow. Well, I think you are the personification of that magic, that passion. I get the sense from you, and we were talking a little bit about this before we went live today. We were talking about passion, and you're like, look, no one's going to tell me what I can or can't do. I'm just going to do it.
Right. Totally. Ask for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission. Yeah.
So, all right. So I know you can't tell us all the details about what's coming up with Hollywood, but like, what can you tell us? Kind of. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
I just want to hear kind of what they're thinking about doing. You don't have to give us any details.
I have been very specifically coached on what I can and cannot say, which is real important in these kind of deals. It has been an incredibly long process. The series was first optioned years ago, like 6-7 years ago, probably. And it's been the same rights holder the entire time. And it's somebody who's just creative vision really just jives with my own. And we work really well together. We talk really well together. And I didn't know what to think about it for the first few years because, you know, these things happen. People get optioned all the time in this.
I mean, is it typical though that it takes that long? That's what I've heard. I don't
know. I've only done this once. So this is my experience. I'm sure that people will be able to tell you their own experience. But yeah, I do know because I've had a lot of friends that have had options, and options come and go. You know, people get real excited, but getting anything done in this world is really hard, especially on a corporate level. You know, it's difficult. So especially for the first, 3 years, I would say I held it really loosely. Like my parents knew, my kids knew, my mom, my husband knew, but I didn't even put it in my bio that it had been optioned because I didn't want to get people excited and then be like, 6 years later, we're still waiting.
Yeah.
What happens? You know what I mean? So I've kept my mouth really way shut about it. And then, things kept progressing and kept going on. And, man, we got really great things were happening. And then the writer's strike happened. And then the actor's strike happened. I mean, it's just,
why not?
It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And, I know how important timing is in the entertainment industry. And so I'm willing to wait for the right time and not get impatient. And if it's meant to happen, it'll happen in the right way. That has been the experience of my lifetime thus far, good or bad. Things happen when they're supposed to happen. So I wasn't going to be the one to rush it. And then this month, when all of this stuff came down through the pike, I reached out to the team and was like, we have an opportunity here, because I've been kind of off of the grid in the writing world for the past few years, because my brain's been my blood's not working correctly. So I've got brain fog, and I've got, all of these issues. I'm not able to work for 17-hour days like I used to.
Can I just say that you're allowed to take a little bit of time here and there?
Right? My readers are like, please stop taking time, though. We're really waiting on book 2 of the new series.
I know. Settle down, readers.
But man, my readers have been so gracious and just so supportive.
Well, I mean, you're sharing your life story with them. I mean, it sounds like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you expressed some vulnerability. That's hard to do. But your readers, they really latched onto that, and they love you.
Well, I am
not just your books, but you.
I am who I am, and I made the decision when I chose not to use a pen name, which that's a big decision to make, and everybody should think about that for a very long time. But when I made that decision, I made the decision that I would be the brand. I want people to want to read whatever it is that I have to say. And in the past 3 years, since I've not been putting out fiction books, I've been writing a whole lot of nonfiction, doing some newspaper work, magazine work, just stretching my creativity in other directions. And my readers have been along for that ride, which is really, really awesome. So they are incredible. The team of people that I have around me is just really, Hyder Nation is amazing.
Yeah, Hyder Nation.
Yeah, they picked the name, not me.
Sure, they did. I can talk with you for hours and hours, but I want to, bring up some comments here from people who are hanging out and watching this, and probably some of your readers. Mel just commented, we were talking about the blog. This is from like at the beginning of the conversation, and Mel says, "Those blogs are so good. Love." I remember reading those when I was in a very transitional period of my life. And that's exactly what we talked about before.
Yeah. Yeah. I love you.
And authors, are you hearing this? Are you hearing about your brand isn't just about your books,
Totally.
It's about you.
It is. And honestly, your brand is what you choose it to be. And I will say this, there have been plenty of people in the fiction world who have very strongly cautioned me about your brand only needs to be paranormal fiction. If that's what you want to do, then if I were owned by a big publisher, then that may be the case. But that's not the case in Elicia Hyder's world. In Inkwell and Quill, that's my publishing company. And at Inkwell and Quill, it's what I want to say. And that doesn't, I have a roller derby series that's women's fiction that I love, because I used to play roller derby back in the day, and I'm much better writing about it than I am ever playing it. But those books are hilarious. They're great, but they've never sold as well as The Soul Summoner, because it's a different genre. That's a very real thing. But man, it's worth it to me. I'm like, I don't want to just write paranormal fiction for the rest of my life. I have a lot more than I want to say with however many days I've got left.
Yeah, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
For sure.
Yeah. Did you ever knock one of those girls out of the ring?
No, but plenty of them knocked me out of the ring.
Lexi, our own Lexi Green. Hey, Lexi. I'm going back to the Wattpad discussion earlier. She said, I don't think when Wattpad started to become a thing that people realized how many published books and authors would end up coming out of that.
Absolutely. Some phenomenal authors have come out of that. Anna Todd. Yeah.
And then Wattpad, they opened up a branch in the Philippines, and then it just went.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Lexi. Let's see. I want to make sure I don't skip over anybody. I get so into these conversations sometimes. I'm like, oh man.
It's good to have somebody behind the scenes monitoring.
It totally is. Okay. Our buddy Guillaume. Hey Guillaume, thanks for joining us again. He asks, Alicia, how do you attract so many interested readers? We kind of covered this a little bit throughout the conversation, but if you have anything else you want to add, please.
Giving free books away. Honestly, like that is one of my dear friends, Barbara Vay, said you will never have a better marketing tool or swag item than a book. And when you spread out and when you give away, you want as many people to read the free stuff as possible. You want it to be your very best, the thing that's going to hook them. You can't publish something for free that is mediocre so that they'll buy the really good thing. That's not how it works. You need to give away for free your very best stuff. So, for example, the Soul Summoner is free for the rest of July. The rest of the month, you can go and read book 1 that started all of this for free. And I have excellent sell-through. So when people finish book 1, they very often buy book 2, book 3. And I know if I can get them through to book 4, they'll stay all the way to the end.
Can they get the Soul Summoner from the Soul Summoner website or from your...
Anywhere. Anywhere that you can read this, just about anywhere, I should say. I'm sure that there are some obscure stores, but on all of the stores. Yeah.
So there's the Soul Summoner website link. Yeah, get it from wherever you enjoy.
Yeah, honestly, free books.
Get it for free.
When you're first starting out, giving readers a way to take a chance on your work without it costing them a lot of money is an excellent way to build a following. An excellent way to build a following.
Yeah, and plus, well, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this, Alicia. Do you feel that if you give that book away for free, that readers are more inclined to provide a review on that book?
No, I wouldn't say that. They are if you ask them.
Okay.
And don't be shy about asking people, especially people who've gotten the book for free, to say, hey, if you enjoyed this, please tell people. The best way that you can do this is to leave a review on Amazon or Apple or Barnes and Noble on whichever bookstore you bought the book.
Okay.
Yeah. People don't automatically write reviews, but they will if you ask them.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask. Do it. Beth has a question. Hi, Beth. She asks, if someone would like to see their books picked up for television, is there something they should do?
Pray. Honestly, I had nothing to do with my books getting optioned. That was it. Honestly, it was luck and providence. I believe.
Wasn't none of the agents that you spoke to had anything to do with that, really?
No. So when the books were optioned, I'm pretty sure that was even before I signed. I have an agent now. Hi, Jill. I have an agent now, but I don't think that I did then. I had an attorney. I had a rights attorney who helped me negotiate contracts and stuff like that. But the rights holder found the book, and the producers asked him one day, hey, have you read anything good? And he's like, actually, I'm reading this book.
So cool.
And that's how it came down. And so luck and providence. It's about finding the right person at the right time to catch the vision of your story.
There you go, Beth.
Yep. So cast your net far and wide. That would be my only advice that you have any control of.
Yeah, and write more books. Here's a question from Jamie or Jaime. Says, we do love her. She's just so real. Makes it easy to love and admire her. Hyder Nation.
I have the best readers ever. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Okay. When do I get my Hyder Nation t-shirt? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, you can get them at aliciahyder.com.
Oh, really? Of course you can. Okay. Mel's back. She has a question. Mel, thank you for your question. She asked, I've noticed a connection between all your female protagonists. I'm sorry, there was a little bit of a skip there. I've noticed a connection between all your female protagonists, that they're all strong, independent, and quite badass. There's that word again. I'm going to get fired. Who are your inspirations?
My kids, my girls. My girls, right? Like I want my girls to grow up And this is no knock to men, because obviously, but I want my girls to grow up knowing that they don't need a hero. They can be their own hero, you know? And that doesn't mean that we, don't have help along the way, and we don't have people who hold our arms up when they get tired. Right. My husband has been my biggest supporter from day one, since before day one of this career. But I hope that I write heroines that my girls can look up to and my girls can believe in.
I love it. And I mean, a shout out to your kids, to your husband, to your entire family, just for everything that you've been through and their support of you. I mean, we talked about some of that through, the course of this interview, but even before we went online, I'm like, oh my God, what an amazing, like, how does somebody write all these books, battle cancer? You've got 5 teenagers. I'm like, what?
I do. Yeah. I was telling you before this started, my baby, the youngest of the 5, he's literally moving out this afternoon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how are we here yet? How did we get here? But I want to say this too, particularly because I know that this is Draft to Digital. So we've got a lot of people who want to be where I am, that listen to this. And I want to get something really clear across. The past few years, these are my last years of my children being at home. And I have cried and lost a lot of sleep over, I went from working 17-hour days publishing to not being able to publish anything in the past 3 years now. And I choose to take the blessing in that, because I have been really, really present with my family. 3 years ago, when I started getting sick, I was juggling a lot of balls. If you've heard other interviews with me in the past, you've heard me talk about, if you want to get to this level, it takes 17-hour work days. Big publishers are big publishers. They have whole teams of people. But when you're independent, you do all the things yourself.
Yep.
And I do have a few people that work for me and with me now that help a lot. But when you're indie, you're indie. And this is a big, big job to do it well. Anybody that's been in this for any amount of time can tell you that. And I had a lot of balls in the air that I was juggling. And when my health started failing, a ball had to drop. And I wasn't going to let that be my kids and my family. And I had to let the writing and the 17-hour work days go for a while. And I have, on the other side of that, like I said, this is my first interview back.
That's part of taking care of you. And how lucky are we that this is your first interview back?
I know. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I do have a lot of amazing friends in this business that I have met and really love and respect. And when my personal life hit the fan, I knew that there was a list of people that I could reach out to and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And I need a community around me. And so important. So many people at Draft to Digital that were like, yes, we want to walk in this storm with you. And so that's how you and I met.
It is.
Mm-hmm, it is. Yeah.
All right. I can't wait till we see each other in person, though. I got a compliment. When you start doing that again, I'm going to stalk you. Then your husband's going to say, who's this weird guy? And it'll be okay. We're at time, but if you can hang out a little bit longer, I want to get to a few more of these questions and comments from your readers.
I'm here.
All right. Let's keep going. Jamie, and Jamie, thanks for correcting me on your name. Sorry about that earlier. Jamie says, how do you maintain such faith in your unbelievable trials?
Man, because what's the alternative? Giving up, quitting, believing that life just sucks and there's nothing that you can do about it. That's the alternative. And, when I die, maybe my faith is wrong. And maybe when I die, I'll be blinked out of existence and I'll get to rest in peace for all of eternity with no more of the trials and tribulations that are here on earth. But boy, if I'm right, and I am a spiritual being that is much bigger than my broken body, and I get to fly in my next life, man, that's much sweeter hope to hold on to than just thinking this is all for nothing.
I love it. I love it. I want to bring up this comment or this question from Christine. Christine asked, "How do you handle the people who underestimate you?" I don't think there are any more of those after this conversation.
I hang out with the people that know better than to underestimate me. I keep my focus on the people who stand behind me and with me. You got to turn your ears off, because there's going to be plenty of people in this world that are going to tell you you can't do whatever it is that you, and if you listen and if you believe them and if you choose to walk that journey, then you won't go anywhere.
Especially if you want to write books for a living.
Totally.
You, the people who love you are going to tell you, "Are you sure?" Because, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I love you, Christine.
Thank you for the question, Christine. I'm going to keep going. I had this comment from Christine who says, "Alicia likes to tell Alicia's kids that she's kind of a big deal."
They do. It's really, really funny.
Absolutely.
Because my kids are like, I saw her in her bathrobe earlier. She's really not.
Again, I'm sure you're proud of your kids. I'm proud of your kids. My gosh. Anybody out there, if you want to learn more about Elicia Hyder, and who wouldn't now, please visit her website. Go to aliciahyder.com. She's got information about all of her series. And of course, the Soul Summoner. We're so excited for you. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. Oh my God.
I'm like, fingers crossed. We're really hoping that we will have some news to announce by the end of summer. But yeah, we've got a 3-time Emmy award-winning production team behind this. And like, I can't even believe that we're talking about, you know, my content that I wrote. You know, it's phenomenal.
Believe it. Believe it. I just want to, you know, put my little flag and say, like, if you get invited to those award ceremonies and you're walking down the red carpet, if you have any extra tickets.
Totally. What's up, Jim? Let's go.
Hey, all right, I'll be there. I got to go through the typical ending of the YouTube interview session stuff here. So hang out for a second if you can, Alicia, and then we'll meet back in the green room backstage. In the meantime, I just want to tell our viewers out there, you guys, thank you so much for being here week in and week out. And if this is your first time watching Self-Publishing Insiders, we appreciate you. Thanks for showing up. We hope you come back and visit us again sometime soon. Sure. If you could do us a solid and like, share, comment, but especially share this episode, because I think people are going to love the goodness, the inspiration, the wisdom from Alicia in this episode. So please do that. If you want to see future episodes, be sure to bookmark dddlive.com, because every week we try to have another one of these interviews. And if you go to dddlive.com, if we're on the ball, then when you go there, you can see what the next topic is going to be for the following week. Yeah. And finally, for those of you who may be aspiring authors and you're like, I want to be like Alicia, why not sign up for your free Draft to Digital account today by going to drafttodigital.com. That's it for the obligatory stuff about Draft to Digital. The next thing I need to do is to end this conversation by sharing with everybody out there a quick 30-second commercial spot for Draft to Digital print. But before I roll that, Alicia, thanks again. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you.
And for our viewers out there, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you here next week. Bye, everybody.
Ebooks are great, but there's just something about having your words in print. Something you can hold in your hands, put on a shelf, sign for a reader. That's why we created DDD Print, a print-on-demand service that was built for you. We have free, beautiful templates to give your book a pro look, and we can even convert your ebook cover into a full wraparound cover for print. So many options for you and your books. And you can get started right now at drafttodigital.com.
Hey, we did it. That was so fun. Oh, I can't hear you again. Oh, you're muted. There you are.